The machine that was supposed to save the world died after 90 seconds, and the billionaire who built it was running out of people to blame. Inside the glass tower of Hawthorne Dynamics, the night burned cold and white. In the center of the underground lab stood the Aether Core, a massive clean energy engine designed to power entire cities without smoke, oil, or limits. It was supposed to change history. But every test ended the same way. 87 seconds. 88. 89. Then the engine shuddered, screamed like metal in pain, and shut down with one small humiliating click. The room went silent. Victor Hawthorne, the billionaire founder of the company, stood frozen beneath the harsh laboratory lights. His jaw tightened. His eyes moved across the exhausted engineers like knives. 6 weeks. $20 million. The smartest minds in the country. And still, the future of energy could not survive longer than a minute and a half. Victor slammed his hand against the steel railing. "Is this what I paid for?" he snapped. $20 million, and all you can give me is failure. No one answered. The engineers looked down at their tablets, their shoes anywhere but his face. They had replaced sensors, rewritten code, rebuilt circuits, and flown in experts from overseas. Nothing worked. The Aether Core stood behind them, beautiful and useless. Victor took one slow breath. Then his eyes drifted toward the corner of the room. Someone else was there. A cleaning woman in a faded blue uniform wiping down a stainless steel counter, trying not to be noticed. Victor's expression changed. Cold. Gruel. And in that moment, the failure of a billion-dollar machine was about to become the beginning of something no one in that room would ever forget. The silence in the lab did not feel empty. It felt heavy. Like everyone in that room was standing under the weight of a future that was slipping through their fingers. Victor Hawthorne turned away from the cleaning woman for a moment and faced his engineering team again. 23 people stood in a broken half-circle around the Aether Core. Some still held tablets, some had grease on their sleeves. One man had a coffee stain down the front of his shirt and eyes so red he looked like he had forgotten what sleep felt like. These were not amateurs. They were the best. Engineers from MIT, Stanford, Caltech, and the finest research labs in Europe. People who had built satellites, defense systems, medical robots, and machines no ordinary person would ever understand. But tonight they looked small. Defeated. For 6 straight weeks they had lived inside this lab. They ate at their desks. They slept on office couches. They argued over equations until sunrise, then started again before the coffee was even warm. They replaced the thermal sensors. Nothing changed. They rewired the control boards. Nothing changed. They tore through millions of lines of code searching for one bad command, one hidden error, one tiny mistake that could explain why the most advanced clean energy engine in the world died after 90 seconds. Still nothing. Even the specialists flown in from Switzerland had left with polite excuses and pale faces. Dr. Ethan Mercer, the lead engineer, stood closest to the engine. His hands were folded behind his back, but his fingers would not stop moving. He had given his life to physics. He had solved problems that made other scientists walk away. But the Aether Core had broken him. Victor stared at him. "Well," Victor said. Dr. Mercer swallowed. His voice came out dry. "Sir, the resonance keeps building faster than our models predict. We've adjusted every stabilizer. We've rebuilt the timing sequence. We've checked the containment field over and over." Victor's eyes narrowed. "And?" Dr. Mercer looked at the machine. For a second he seemed older than he had been that morning. "And we still don't know where it starts." No one breathed. The words landed harder than any explosion. Victor stepped closer. "So what you're telling me," he said slowly, "is that after 6 weeks, $20 million, and every degree hanging on these walls, you have no idea what is killing my engine?" Dr. Mercer did not answer. He didn't have to. The answer was written on every face in the room. A young engineer near the back lowered her eyes. Another rubbed his forehead like he could push the headache out through his skull. Someone's diagnostic tablet beeped once, then went quiet. Victor let out a cold laugh. Not loud. Worse than loud. It was the kind of laugh that made people feel ashamed just for standing there. "This machine was supposed to make history," he said. "It was supposed to power hospitals, homes, entire cities. It was supposed to put Hawthorne Dynamics 10 years ahead of every competitor on Earth." He pointed at the silent Aether Core. "And instead it gives me 90 seconds. The engine stood in the center of the room like a wounded giant. Its polished steel ribs reflected the lab lights. Thick glass panels showed the dark veins of its energy channels. Everything about it looked perfect. That was the cruelest part. It looked perfect. But every person in that room knew better. Perfection did not shake itself apart. Perfection did not scream at 90 seconds. Perfection did not die with a click. Dr. Mercer tried again. "We believe the failure may be happening below the level of the sensors. Some kind of secondary vibration, possibly mechanical, possibly electromagnetic." "Believe," Victor cut him off. The word cracked across the room. You believe? Dr. Mercer closed his mouth. Victor looked from one engineer to another. Do you know what investors believe they believe I promised them a miracle? Do you know what the government committee believes they believe this engine will be ready for public demonstration in 2 weeks? He leaned in, his voice dropping. And do you know what I believe? No one moved. I believe I am standing in a room full of brilliant people who have become very expensive at failing. A few faces tightened. No one dared respond. That was Victor Hawthorne's power. He didn't just own the company. He owned the air in the room. He could make a grown man with 3 doctorates feel like a child caught breaking a window. Dr. Mercer's shoulders sank. Behind him, the other engineers stood with the dull, haunted look of people who had tried everything and still lost. Then from the corner of the lab came the soft sound of a cloth moving across steel. Swipe. 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 It was quiet. Almost nothing. But in that silence it was impossible not to hear. Victor turned his head. There she was again. The cleaning woman. Her name in this version of the story was Maria Bennett. She stood beside the counter in her faded blue uniform, one hand gripping a rag, the other resting near a gray plastic cleaning cart. She had been trying to disappear. Trying not to look up, trying not to become part of a storm that had nothing to do with her. But Victor had seen her. And the room felt it instantly. The shift. The danger. Maria froze. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to the floor. Victor's mouth curved into a thin smile. A cruel idea had just found him. He turned fully toward her. You, he said. The word cut through the lab. Maria's hand tightened around the rag. Every engineer turned to look. And for the first time that night, the billion-dollar engine was no longer the center of attention. She was. Victor Hawthorne stared at Maria Bennett as if she were a stain on his perfect white floor. The lab held its breath. Maria stood still beside the cleaning cart. Her faded blue uniform was slightly too big at the shoulders. A loose strand of hair had fallen across her cheek. One hand still held the damp cloth. The other rested against the edge of the cart, gripping it so tightly her knuckles had turned pale. She had not come there to be seen. She had come there to work. Empty the trash. Wipe the counters. Mop the floors. Leave before sunrise. That was the agreement life had given her. But now every pair of eyes in the most advanced laboratory in the country was fixed on her. Victor took one slow step toward her. His polished shoes clicked against the floor. Tell me, he said, his voice smooth and sharp. What do you think of our little problem? Maria blinked. For a second she thought she had heard him wrong. Sir. The engine, Victor said, pointing without looking back. The machine my engineers can't seem to fix. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Ethan Mercer lowered his gaze. Maria looked from Victor to the massive ether core, then back again. I don't know anything about that, sir, she said quietly. I just clean here. Victor smiled. Not kindly. Of course you do. The words brought a few nervous laughs from the back of the room. Not real laughter. The kind people make when a powerful man is being cruel and they are too afraid not to join him. Maria felt heat rise in her face. She looked down. That was exactly what Victor wanted. For 2 years, Maria Bennett had worked the night shift at Hawthorne Dynamics. She had cleaned coffee rings from conference tables where men talked about billions. She had emptied trash cans filled with sketches, failed reports, and half-eaten dinners. She had watched brilliant people walk past her without seeing her at all. Most nights that was fine. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant she could do her job, clock out, and get home before her daughter woke up for school. Her life was already heavy enough. Rent was overdue. The car needed repairs. And every hospital bill with her daughter's name on it felt like another brick placed on her chest. Maria had learned to count money in whispers. Which bill could wait? Which meal could be stretched? Which phone call from collections she could ignore one more day? That was why she had taken the night shift. Not because it was easy. Because she had no choice. Victor stopped a few feet in front of her. Maria Bennett, isn't it? He asked. Her eyes lifted in surprise. He knew her name. Somehow that made it worse. Yes, sir. Single mother? Maria's stomach tightened. The room grew colder. She did not answer right away. Victor glanced toward the engineers, then back at her. Medical bills, rent, debt, the usual problems. Maria's lips parted, but no words came out. That small detail, the way he knew just enough about her pain to use it, made the humiliation sharper. Dr. Mercer shifted. Mr. Hawthorne, he said. Carefully, there's no need to. Victor raised one hand. Dr. Mercer stopped. Just like that. Victor looked around the room. Maybe we've been thinking too hard, he said. Maybe the mistake was hiring experts. Maybe we didn't need doctorates, models, or international consultants. He turned back to Maria. Maybe all we needed was the cleaning lady. This time the laughter was smaller. More ashamed. Still it happened. Maria stood there and took it. Her cheeks burned, her throat tightened. She wanted to disappear behind the cart, behind the wall, behind anything that could hide her from those eyes. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered. "I really don't know." Victor leaned closer. "Come on, Maria. You've been here every night. You've heard them talking. You've seen the tests. Surely you must have some wisdom to offer." His voice was gentle now. That made it crueler. Maria shook her head. "I only clean." Victor's smile widened. "Only clean." He repeated the words as if they amused him. Then he turned to the whole room. "There you have it. Honesty at last." No one spoke. The ether core stood behind him, silent and enormous, like it too was watching. Victor took another step. "Let's make this interesting," he said. Maria looked up. Something in his tone frightened her. Victor spread his arms, playing now to the entire laboratory. "I'll make you an offer. Since my engineers have failed so spectacularly, perhaps you can succeed where they couldn't." Maria's voice trembled. "Please, sir. Don't do this." But Victor kept going. "If you fix that engine?" He paused. The room leaned in despite itself. "I will give you $100 million. A shocked murmur moved through the lab. 100 million. The number was too large to feel real. It did not sound like money. It sounded like a weapon. Maria stared at him, stunned. For one impossible second she saw every bill paid. Every hospital door opened. Every fear that woke her at 3 a.m. disappearing. Then she saw Victor's face. And she understood. He was not offering hope. He was making her the joke. Her eyes filled, but she forced the tears back. "I can't," she said. Victor's expression hardened. "Of course you can't." The words hit harder than a slap. He turned away from her as if the performance was over. "Go back to work." Maria lowered her head. Her hand shook as she reached for the cloth again. The engineers looked anywhere else. No one defended her. No one said her name. No one moved. And then, from near the glass doors at the far end of the lab, a small voice broke the silence. "My mom can't fix it." Everyone turned. A little girl stood in the doorway, clutching a worn teddy bear to her chest. Her eyes were steady. "But I can." The little girl's voice was not loud. But it cut through the laboratory like a bell. "My mom can't fix it," she said again, standing in the doorway with both arms wrapped around a worn teddy bear. "But I can." For 1 second nobody moved. Not Victor Hawthorne. Not Dr. Ethan Mercer. Not the engineers. Not Maria Bennett, whose face had gone completely pale. The girl was small, maybe 10 years old. She wore a faded pink jacket, the sleeves a little too short at the wrists. Her sneakers were scuffed. Her hair was pulled back, but a few loose curls framed her face. She looked like a child who should have been asleep in the back seat of a car, not standing inside a billion-dollar energy lab after midnight. Maria's breath caught. "Lily," she whispered. The girl looked at her mother, then back at Victor. Her eyes did not shake. "I can fix it." And then Victor Hawthorne laughed. Not a chuckle. Not a smile. A loud, sharp laugh that bounced off the glass walls and came back colder than before. "Well," he said, clapping once, "this night just keeps getting better." A few engineers looked at the floor. No one joined him this time. Victor turned slowly toward the child, enjoying every second. "First the cleaning woman," he said. "Now her daughter." He looked around the room as if inviting the others to enjoy the show. "What's next?" "A golden retriever, with a physics degree." A nervous laugh slipped from somewhere near the back, then died immediately. Maria rushed toward her daughter. "Lily, no. You shouldn't be here." But Lily did not step back. She held the teddy bear tighter against her chest, the way a soldier might hold a shield. "I heard the engine," she said. Victor lifted his eyebrows. "You heard the engine?" "Yes." "And what exactly did it tell you?" he asked. "Did it whisper its feelings?" Lily looked past him at the aether core. The enormous machine stood in the center of the lab, silent now, its steel frame gleaming under the white lights. To everyone else it was a miracle of engineering. To Lily it was something else. A sound waiting to be understood. "It's not the loud part that matters," she said. "It's the part underneath." The room changed. Just slightly. Dr. Mercer looked up. A young engineer stopped rubbing his eyes. Victor's smile faded for half a second, then returned. "Oh really?" Lily nodded. "When it starts it sounds strong. But before it shuts down there's another sound. Small. Like something is fighting the rhythm." Maria grabbed Lily gently by the shoulders. "Sweetheart, please stop." Her voice trembled now, not with anger but with fear. She knew men like Victor Hawthorne. Men who could turn a joke into punishment. Men who could ruin a life because their pride had been scratched. "This is not a game," Maria said. "I know," Lily answered softly. That answer nearly broke her mother. Victor walked toward them, slow and deliberate. "Do you understand what this machine is?" he asked. Lily looked up at him. Yes. No, Victor said. You don't. This engine has defeated the best minds in the country. It has cost me $20 million in failed testing alone. It is supervised by federal observers, international consultants, and people with degrees you probably can't even pronounce. Lily did not blink. Victor leaned closer. And you think you can fix it because you heard a noise? Lily's voice stayed calm. Not a noise. A pause. A pattern. Those two words landed differently. Dr. Mercer turned his head. Across the room, Dr. Grace Whitman, the government physicist assigned to monitor the project, had been quiet all night. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and impossible to impress. She had watched reactors fail. She had seen weapon systems collapse in testing. She had spent her career listening to powerful men dismiss the one person in the room who saw what they missed. Now she was watching Lily. Carefully. Victor crossed his arms. You really believe you can fix it? Yes, Lily said. Maria shook her head quickly. No. She doesn't. She's a child. She doesn't understand what she's saying. But Lily looked at her mother. I do understand. Maria's eyes filled. Lily, please. The child's face softened for the first time. I heard it, Mom. Something passed between them then. A private history. Long nights. Old machines. A little girl noticing things adults ignored. A mother who had seen enough to know her daughter was different even if the world would never believe it. Victor saw none of that. He only saw another chance to prove his own superiority. Fine, he said. The words snapped through the room. Maria turned to him in horror. No. Victor smiled. Oh yes. He faced the engineers. Let the child try. No one moved. Dr. Mercer opened his mouth. Mr. Hawthorne, this is highly irregular. Victor's eyes cut to him. So is spending $20 million and having nothing to show for it. Dr. Mercer fell silent. Maria stepped in front of Lily. Please, she said, don't do this to her. Victor's voice dropped. She spoke up. She made the claim. Then he looked down at Lily. $100 million if you succeed. The lab went still. And if you fail, he added, turning his eyes toward Maria, your mother's job is gone by morning. Maria's face drained of color. Lily's grip tightened around the teddy bear. For a moment the child looked very small. Then she stepped out from behind her mother. One step. Then another. No, Maria whispered. But Lily kept walking toward the Aether core. Every adult in the room watched her. Some with pity. Some with doubt. Some with fear. Victor stood back wearing the smile of a man certain he was about to watch a child embarrass herself. Lily stopped in front of the massive machine. She reached out with one small hand and placed her palm against the cold metal. Then she closed her eyes. The lab waited. The billionaire smiled. The engineers held their breath, and the little girl began to listen. Lily Bennett stood before the Aether core like a child facing a sleeping giant. The machine towered above her, all polished steel glass chambers, copper veins, and silent power. It filled the lab with its presence even when it was off. The kind of machine adults looked at and lowered their voices. But Lily did not look afraid. Her palm rested flat against the cold metal casing. Her teddy bear hung from her other hand. Behind her, Maria Bennett covered her mouth, trying not to cry. Every part of her wanted to run forward, grab her daughter, and pull her out of that room forever. But she couldn't move. No one could. Victor Hawthorne stood several feet away, arms folded, a cruel little smile, still sitting on his face. Go ahead, he said. Show us your miracle. Lily opened her eyes and looked at him. I don't need a miracle. The lab went quiet. I just need to listen. That simple sentence did something strange to the room. It did not convince anyone. Not yet. But it slowed them down. Even Victor's smile twitched. Listen, he repeated, as if the word tasted ridiculous. Lily nodded. Yes. Dr. Ethan Mercer stepped forward, careful now, curious despite himself. Listen to what exactly? Lily turned back to the engine. To it. A few engineers exchanged looks. One of them almost laughed, then stopped when Dr. Grace Whitman's eyes cut across the room. The older physicist had not moved from her place near the observation glass, but her attention was fixed completely on the girl. Lily placed her second hand on the casing. The metal was cold enough to make her fingers tense. She closed her eyes. The lab lights hummed overhead. A ventilation fan whispered somewhere behind the wall. Someone's tablet chimed softly, then was silenced. Maria's breathing shook in small broken pulls. Lily ignored all of it. She leaned closer to the Aether core. Not pressing her ear against it. Not pretending. Just feeling. Waiting. Victor gave a short laugh. Well, is it telling you its secrets? Lily did not answer. That bothered him more than any argument could have. Dr. Mercer glanced at the diagnostic station. The engine is powered down, he said. There's nothing to hear right now. Lily opened her eyes. There is. The words were calm. Too calm for a child surrounded by adults waiting for her to fail. What do you hear? Dr. Mercer asked. Lily looked at the massive rings inside the casing. Not here, she said. Feel? She moved her palms slowly along the side panel, stopping near a seam where two sections met. It remembers where it shakes. No one spoke. Victor rolled his eyes. It remembers. Lily looked at him again. Not like a person. Like a table after something heavy hits it. Like a pipe after water rushes through. The shaking leaves a place. Dr. Mercer's expression changed. Just a little? Dr. Grace Whitman took one step closer. Maria noticed that step. So did Victor. Lily continued moving her hand across the metal surface. Her fingertips paused, then slid lower. When it runs, the big sound covers everything, she said. That's what everyone keeps watching. The loud shaking. The alarms. The numbers. Her eyes moved toward the walls of screens. But underneath there's another rhythm. Dr. Mercer whispered almost to himself. A secondary resonance. Lily did not know the term. She only knew what she felt. It's smaller, she said. Like a knock behind a wall. Victor's smile weakened. Enough, he said. This is theater. But Dr. Whitman spoke for the first time. Let her finish. Every head turned. Victor looked at her. Dr. Whitman, surely you don't believe this child can diagnose a billion-dollar engine by touching it. Dr. Whitman did not look away from Lily. I believe she said that everyone else in this room has failed. That landed hard. No one laughed. Victor's jaw flexed. Lily took a slow breath and placed both hands near the lower frame. When my mom cleans here, she said softly, sometimes I sit outside the lab doors and wait. I hear the tests through the glass. The engine always starts the same way. Strong. Smooth. Like it knows where it's going. Maria's eyes widened. She had not known Lily listened. Not like that. But then Lily continued, right before it stops something changes. It's not the scream at the end. That's not the problem. That's just when the problem gets loud enough for everyone to notice. Dr. Mercer stepped closer now. What happens before that? Lily closed her eyes again. Her fingers curled slightly against the metal. There's a tiny beat that doesn't belong. A long pause. 1, 2, 1, 2, then a third one comes in wrong. She tapped lightly with her fingertips. Tap, 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 tap. The sound was small, but every person in the room heard it. That's what it does, Lily said. It tries to follow the main rhythm, but it can't. So it pushes back. One engineer muttered. That would explain the exponential rise. Another whispered. But the sensors didn't isolate it. Dr. Mercer looked almost angry now, not at Lily but at himself. Because we've been filtering it out as background noise. Lily did not understand all of that. But she understood the machine. She looked at Victor. You keep asking why it dies at 90 seconds. The room froze. She pointed gently to the lower side of the engine. It starts dying before that. Victor stared at her. For the first time that night he had no clever answer. Lily lowered her hand and stepped back. I need you to turn it on, she said. Maria gasped. No, absolutely not. Lily turned to her mother. Mom, I have to hear it while it's awake. Maria shook her head, tears spilling now. You are 10 years old. I know. This is dangerous. I know? Maria's voice broke. Then why are you doing this? Lily looked at the ether core, then back at her mother. Because it's not broken the way they think it is. The lab was silent. Victor studied the child. His pride wanted to crush her. His fear wanted answers. His company, his reputation, his miracle machine, all of it hung in the air between them. Finally he turned to Dr. Mercer. Start the sequence. Dr. Mercer hesitated. Sir. Start it. Maria reached for Lily, but Lily gently slipped from her hand. She walked back to the ether core and placed both palms against the steel. The lights dimmed. The control panels came alive. A low hum began deep inside the machine. The floor trembled. The ether core woke. And Lily Bennett closed her eyes again. Not to guess. Not to pretend. To listen. The ether core came alive with a low rising growl. Lights across the control wall blinked from red to amber, then amber to green. The glass chambers inside the machine pulsed with pale blue energy. Steel ribs trembled. Copper lines shimmered under the laboratory lights. Everyone stepped back. Everyone except Lily Bennett. She stood with both small hands pressed against the engine, her eyes closed, her worn teddy bear tucked under one arm. Maria Bennett whispered, "Please, baby." But Lily did not answer. She was somewhere else now. Not in the lab. Not under Victor Hawthorne's cold stare. Not surrounded by engineers waiting to see if she would fail. She was back in a dusty garage behind a small white house on the edge of town. The garage smelled like motor oil, rain, and old wood. Sunlight came through cracked windows and thin golden lines. Rusted tools hung on the wall. Engine parts sat on shelves in coffee cans. A radio played softly in the corner, always turned low because the man who worked there said loud music made it harder to hear what mattered. His name was Walter Reed, Lily's great-grandfather. He had hands like worn leather and eyes that smiled before his mouth did. Years ago, before his knees got weak and before his voice grew thin, Walter had worked on airplanes. Not the clean kind in museums. Real ones. Heavy ones. Machines that shook the ground when they woke up and carried people through storms. To most people, Walter was just an old mechanic. To Lily, he was magic. When she was 6 years old, Maria used to drop her off at his garage after school when bills were tight and childcare was impossible. Lily would sit on an overturned bucket, swinging her feet, watching him repair engines older than she was. He never talked down to her. Never told her she was too little. Never told her machines were for men in uniforms or people with degrees. He would place a greasy bolt in her palm and say, "Feel that little bird. Every part has a job, and when it can't do its job it complains." Lily would frown. Machines complain. Walter would chuckle. More than people. People lie. Machines don't. Then he would guide her hand to a running engine. The first time Lily jerked back. "It's shaking." Walter laughed. "Of course it's shaking. It's alive in its own way." He took her hand again gently this time and placed it on the metal. "Now, don't just hear the noise. Listen under it." Lily didn't understand at first. All she heard was rumbling, rattling, metal, power. But Walter was patient. "That big sound is what everybody hears," he said. "The secret is always smaller." He taught her to close her eyes. To feel with her fingertips. To notice when a rhythm leaned left instead of right. When a smooth hum had a tiny break inside it. When a part was not broken yet but already asking for help. "A bad bearing has a rough whisper," Walter told her. "A loose belt slaps. A tired valve coughs. And a cracked bracket." He tapped 2 fingers against a metal frame. "That one knocks like somebody behind a door." Lily remembered that sound. Knock. Pause. Knock knock. She practiced for years. While other kids played games on tablets, Lily sat in Walter's garage with old engines, broken fans, lawnmowers, radios, and anything else he could find. He would cover her eyes with a bandana and start something up. "What is it?" he'd ask. She would listen. "Loose screw near the bottom." He would grin. "Where?" "Left side." "Good." Again and again he trained her. Not with textbooks. Not with formulas. With patience. With sound. With silence. On the last summer afternoon she ever spent with him, Walter sat beside her on the garage step. His hands shook a little by then. His breathing was slower. The radio was off. He looked at her and said the sentence she would carry forever. "Most people hear noise, Lily. But good mechanics hear stories." She had not known then how much she would miss hearing his voice. She knew now. Back in the laboratory the ether core grew louder. 30 seconds. 40. The floor trembled beneath everyone's feet. The engineers watched the screens. Victor watched Lily. Maria watched her daughter's face, searching for fear. But Lily was listening for Walter. For the lessons hidden in oil-stained afternoons. For the small sound beneath the giant one. At 50 seconds the engine seemed perfect. Just like always. Strong. Smooth. Beautiful. Dr. Mercer whispered, "No anomaly yet." Victor's jaw tightened. Lily's fingers moved along the steel casing. She waited. 60 seconds. 70. The ether core's hum deepened, the lights brightened. The whole machine sounded like thunder trapped inside glass. Then Lily felt it. Tiny. Wrong. A shiver under the main rhythm. Not loud enough for the room. Not clear enough for the sensors. But there. Her eyes opened. Walter's voice echoed in her memory. "The secret is always smaller." Lily slid her right hand lower toward the seam near the base. There it was again. Knock. Pause. Knock knock. Her breath caught. Not fear. Recognition. She turned her head toward Dr. Mercer without taking her hands off the machine. "Shut it down." Dr. Mercer blinked. "What?" now Lily said. Something in her voice made him obey. He hit the emergency command. The ether core powered down with a deep metallic sigh. The lab fell into silence. Victor stared at the child. "Well," he said. "What did your magic garage memories tell you?" Lily slowly pulled her hands away from the metal. Her palms were red from the vibration. She looked at the lower frame of the engine. Then at the engineers. Then at Victor. "It's not dying in the center," she said. Dr. Mercer stepped closer. Lily pointed to a narrow section near the base. "It starts here." The engineers leaned in. Maria stopped breathing. Lily's voice stayed small but steady. There's a crack trying to become a break. The words hung in the laboratory like a warning. There's a crack trying to become a break. No one laughed. Not this time. Dr. Ethan Mercer moved first. He stepped toward the lower frame of the ether core, his face tight with disbelief. 2 engineers followed, kneeling beside the section Lily had pointed to. Victor Hawthorne stayed where he was. His arms were still crossed, but his smile was gone. A crack, he said. That's impossible. The frame passed every stress scan. Lily looked at him, calm but tired. The scan didn't hear it. Victor's eyes sharpened. The scan doesn't need to hear, it measures. Lily shook her head. It measured the loud part. That answer seemed to irritate him more than shouting would have. Dr. Mercer crouched near the base, running his hand across the polished metal. The frame looked flawless. No split, no dent, no burn mark. Just smooth steel, cold and perfect under the lights. He turned to the diagnostic table. Bring up the vibration logs from the last test. A young engineer hurried to the screen. Graphs filled the wall, clean lines, sharp peaks, colored waves stacked over one another like a language only experts could read. Dr. Mercer studied them. Nothing obvious. Exactly the problem. For 6 weeks the machine had died and every number had looked almost right until the final seconds. Victor stepped closer. Well, he asked. Dr. Mercer did not answer. Lily walked toward the screen. The charts were taller than she was. Her teddy bear dangled from one hand, its worn cloth ear bent forward. She stared at the moving lines from the recorded test, then pointed to a tiny ripple buried near the bottom. There. The engineer at the console frowned. That's background noise. No, Lily said. Her voice was soft. But certain. That's the other rhythm. The engineer zoomed in. The lines spread across the wall. What had looked like random vibration became a faint repeating pulse. Tap, pause. Tap, tap. Dr. Mercer leaned forward. His face changed. Slowly. Like a man realizing he had been standing beside the answer for weeks and never saw it. Filter out the primary resonance, he said. The engineer typed fast. The main vibration disappeared from the display. What remained was barely visible. A second vibration. Small. Weak. Almost hidden. But there. A strange silence fell over the lab. Dr. Grace Whitman stepped beside Lily, eyes fixed on the screen. My God, she whispered. Victor turned toward her. What? She pointed at the line. That pulse is not random. Dr. Mercer finished the thought. It's harmonic interference. One of the younger engineers shook his head. But it's too small. It shouldn't be able to shut down the whole system. Lily turned back to the engine. It grows. The room went still again. She walked slowly to the lower frame and placed her fingertips on the same seam as before. At first it's just a whisper. Then the big shaking feeds it. Every second it gets stronger. Like pushing someone on a swing. Dr. Mercer stared at her. Resonance amplification, he said. Lily did not know the formal words. She did not need them. She only knew what her hands had felt. Victor looked between Lily and the screen, trapped between doubt and fear. If this were real, he said, the sensors would have caught it. Dr. Mercer spoke without looking at him. They did catch it. Victor froze. We labeled it noise. That sentence broke something in the room. For 6 weeks the greatest engineering team in the country had not missed the signal because it was absent. They had missed it because they had decided it did not matter. Lily looked at the machine again. It matters, she said. Maria Bennett stood near the glass doors, one hand pressed against her chest. Tears shone in her eyes, but she did not wipe them away. She was watching her daughter stand in a room full of powerful adults and say the one thing none of them had been able to say. The machine was speaking. And she had heard it. Dr. Mercer pulled up the previous test data. Run comparison, he ordered. All shutdown events. Last 6 weeks. More graphs appeared. One after another. Test patruzet unu. Test sinzet doi. Test shizet opt. Test shaptazet tre. Each time the same faint pattern appeared. Tiny at first. Then stronger. Then swallowed by chaos right before the engine died at 90 seconds. An engineer covered her mouth. It was there every time. No one spoke. Victor's face tightened, but now there was something else behind his eyes. Not cruelty. Not pride. Fear. Because Lily had not guessed. She had found the thing they had ignored. Dr. Whitman turned to the team. Isolate the source. The engineers moved quickly now, no longer mocking, no longer tired in the same way. Their exhaustion had sharpened into purpose. Screens shifted. Thermal maps loaded. Structural overlays rotated in the air. Dr. Mercer compared the vibration pattern to the engine's frame design. Then he stopped. There, he said. He highlighted a narrow support plate behind the lower casing. Mounting bracket 7? Victor frowned. That bracket was reinforced. It was, Dr. Mercer said. But if there's a microfracture inside the weld? He did not finish. He didn't have to. A microfracture would not show clearly in standard scans. Not at first. But under repeated force it could vibrate in a pattern of its own. Quietly, patiently, growing stronger until it poisoned the entire engine. Lily looked up at him. That's where it knocks. Dr. Mercer stared at her. For the first time his voice carried no doubt. Yes, he said. I think it is. Victor stood behind them silent. The billionaire who had mocked a cleaning woman. The man who had laughed at a child. Now he watched as that child pointed to the hidden wound inside his billion-dollar dream. Dr. Mercer called for a microimaging probe. An engineer rushed to retrieve it. The machine was opened carefully panel by panel. Bolts came loose. Metal covers were lifted away. The lab filled with the sound of tools, quick footsteps, and controlled breathing. Lily stepped back beside her mother. Maria knelt and pulled her close. You scared me, she whispered. I'm sorry, Lily said. Maria kissed the side of her head. No, baby. I'm proud. Across the room, Dr. Mercer guided the probe into the exposed bracket. The image appeared on the main screen. At first it looked like nothing. Then the probe shifted. A thin dark line appeared inside the weld. Hairline small. Almost invisible. But real. The lab went completely silent. Dr. Mercer slowly turned around. She's right, he said. Lily held her teddy bear against her chest. Victor Hawthorne stared at the crack on the screen. For once the room belonged to someone else. Not the billionaire. Not the experts. Not the machine. It belonged to a 10-year-old girl who had heard a whisper hidden under thunder. The crack on the screen was thinner than a thread. But it changed everything. For several seconds no one in the laboratory moved. The microimaging probe held steady inside the exposed lower frame of the ether core, projecting the hidden fracture onto the main wall display. A hairline split. Buried inside the weld. Invisible to the eye. Dismissed by the sensors. Heard by a 10-year-old girl. Dr. Ethan Mercer slowly removed his glasses and wiped them with the edge of his sleeve, though they were not dirty. His face carried the stunned look of a man whose whole world had just shifted half an inch to the left. One of the younger engineers whispered, "That can't be enough to collapse the system." Lily Bennett turned toward him. "It's not strong at first." Her voice was small, but the room listened now. Every face turned to her. Victor Hawthorne stood frozen behind the engineers, his expensive suit bright under the lab lights, his confidence no longer filling the room. Lily stepped closer to the ether core and pointed to the exposed bracket. "It starts quiet," she said. "Like a loose stair in an old house. You don't notice it the first time. But every time someone steps on it, it moves a little more." Dr. Mercer blinked. Then his eyes moved fast from Lily to the bracket, from the bracket to the vibration graph. "She's describing progressive resonance fatigue," he said under his breath. Lily looked at him. "I don't know what that means." Dr. Mercer lowered himself to one knee so he was closer to her height. "It means," he said carefully, "you're right." The words landed harder than any apology could have. Maria Bennett pressed both hands to her mouth. Dr. Grace Whitman's expression softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. She had seen geniuses take credit for guesses. She had seen powerful men dress failure in technical language, but this was different. This child was not pretending to be an expert. She was simply explaining what she heard. And somehow, every simple word pointed toward something the experts understood. Lily looked back at the engine. "When it runs," she continued, "the big circle pulls one way. Then the little crack answers late. Not a lot. Just a tiny bit." She tapped the air. Once. Twice. Then a delayed third tap. That late beat keeps bumping into the main beat. And the engine tries to fix it by pushing harder. But that only makes the little beat louder. Dr. Mercer turned to the console. "Pull up the phase delay at 70 seconds. An engineer typed quickly. The graph changed. A sharp blue wave appeared across the screen. Beneath it, a smaller yellow wave flickered, almost hidden. Dr. Mercer leaned forward. "There," he said. "There it is." The yellow wave lagged behind the main vibration by a fraction of a second. Barely anything. But enough. Another engineer stood slowly. "We compensated for the primary resonance," she said, her voice shaking with realization. "But the control system kept amplifying the secondary response." Dr. Mercer nodded. "Because we told it to stabilize the wrong vibration. The room absorbed that. 6 weeks of failure. Millions of dollars. Endless late nights. Not because the data was missing. Because the meaning had been misunderstood." Lily hugged her teddy bear tighter. "It's like when someone is crying," she said. Everyone looked at her. "If you only tell them to be quiet, they cry harder. You have to find out where it hurts." No one breathed. That sentence was not engineering. But somehow it explained everything. Dr. Whitman looked at the engine, then at Victor. "She just gave you the failure model." Victor did not answer. He was staring at Lily as if seeing her for the first time. Not as the daughter of a cleaning woman. Not as a joke. Not as a child who had wandered into a room where she did not belong. As the only person who had listened. Dr. Mercer moved back to the engine and examined the exposed bracket again. The microfracture creates a delayed vibration, he said, thinking aloud now. The stabilizers interpret it as drift in the main field. They increase correction. That correction strengthens the fracture response. By 90 seconds the system is fighting itself. Lily nodded slowly. Yes. Dr. Mercer turned. You understood that from the sound. Lily shook her head. Not the sound. She placed her palm gently near the open frame. The silence between the sounds. Dr. Whitman almost smiled. Victor's jaw tightened, but not with anger this time. With shame. The kind that comes late. The kind that has nowhere to hide. Maria stepped forward, still afraid to speak too loudly in a room that had treated her like she was nothing. My daughter learned from her great-grandfather, she said. He worked on aircraft engines. He taught her to listen to machines. No one laughed. No one dismissed her. Dr. Mercer looked at Lily with new respect. What would your great-grandfather say now? Lily looked at the exposed crack. Then at the great machine around it. He'd say the engine isn't broken because it's weak. A pause. It's broken because nobody heard the small part asking for help. The words settled over the lab. Even the machine seemed quiet. Victor looked down at the white floor, the same floor Maria had cleaned every night while men like him walked past her. Then Lily turned back to the engineers. You don't need to make it stronger everywhere, she said. That will only make it fight harder. Dr. Mercer's eyes narrowed. What do we need? Lily pointed to the bracket. You need to calm it down right there. The engineers looked at one another. Then slowly the impossible began to sound possible. Dr. Ethan Mercer stared at Lily Bennett's finger pointing toward the wounded bracket. You need to calm it down right there, she had said. Not replace the whole engine. Not rebuild the core. Not pour another $10 million into another desperate test. Just calm the one place where the machine was hurting. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then Dr. Mercer turned to the engineering team. Damping, he said. The word moved through the room like a spark. One engineer lifted his head. Another stepped closer to the console. Dr. Grace Whitman's eyes narrowed, already following the idea. Dr. Mercer pointed to the exposed lower frame of the Aether core. If the microfracture is creating a delayed vibration, we don't need more force. We need absorption. Something that can take that secondary resonance and bleed it off before the stabilizers amplify it. Victor Hawthorne frowned. In English, doctor. Dr. Mercer did not look at him. The engine is not asking to be pushed harder. The child is right. It needs to be quieted. Lily stood beside her mother, still holding the teddy bear against her chest. Her face was calm, but her fingers were curled tightly into the worn fabric. Maria noticed. She always noticed. She placed one hand gently on Lily's shoulder. You okay, baby? Lily nodded. But her eyes never left the machine. Dr. Whitman stepped toward the exposed bracket. What material, she asked. The engineers began speaking over one another. Composite insulation. Too brittle under heat. Ceramic buffer. Wrong response time. Flexible polymer. It'll degrade under core temperature. The old failure returned to the room for half a second. Too many voices. Too many theories. Too much pride. Then Lily spoke. Copper. Everyone turned. Victor's eyebrows lifted. Copper. Lily looked down, suddenly aware of every adult watching her again. But she did not step back. My great-grandpa used it, she said. Not for big breaks. For little ones. When an engine had a shake that kept coming back, he'd put copper where the metal was arguing with itself. One engineer almost smiled at the phrase. Metal arguing with itself. But Dr. Mercer did not smile. He turned slowly toward the structural display. Copper has high thermal conductivity, he murmured. Good energy transfer. Soft enough to absorb microvibration. Stable if shielded properly. Dr. Whitman nodded. And if shaped as a dampening sleeve instead of a patch, it could distribute the resonance across the support assembly. The younger engineer at the console pulled up a material simulation. Copper alloy insert, he said, typing fast. Thin layer. Curved bracket interface. Not load-bearing. Just a resonance sink. A model appeared on the screen. At first it was only a glowing outline. Then the system began to simulate the vibration. The main pulse rolled through the frame. The secondary pulse rose from the cracked bracket. Then the copper sleeve absorbed it. The yellow wave dropped. Not gone. But controlled. Dr. Mercer leaned closer. Run it again. The engineer ran the simulation. Same result. Again? Same result? For the first time that night, hope entered the lab. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet change in posture. Shoulders lifted. Eyes sharpened. People who had looked dead on their feet 10 minutes earlier suddenly moved like they remembered why they had become engineers in the first place. Victor watched them silent. This was his company. His engine. His billion-dollar dream. And yet the room no longer revolved around him. It revolved around a little girl in a faded pink jacket who had suggested copper because an old mechanic once taught her how to listen. Dr. Mercer turned to the team. Machine a copper dampening collar. Now. Half-inch width, fitted around bracket 7. We'll need thermal shielding pressure locks and a secondary scan before ignition. The team scattered. The lab exploded into motion. Drawers opened. Tools hit steel tables. A 3D scan of the bracket rotated on the wall. Measurements flashed across screens. Someone sprinted to the fabrication room. Someone else rolled over a portable laser cutter. The sound of defeat was gone. In its place came purpose. Maria stood back overwhelmed watching people with doctorates build something from her daughter's idea. Lily stayed quiet. She did not smile. Not yet. She only watched the aether core as if listening even while it slept. Victor finally stepped closer. For once his voice was lower. Where did you learn that? Lily looked at him. My great-grandpa Walter. Victor glanced at the engine. He was an engineer. Lily shook her head. A mechanic. The word landed in the space between them. Victor had used words like that all his life to measure people. Engineer. Investor. Founder. Cleaner. Mechanic. As if a title could tell the whole story of a human being. But tonight, a mechanic's lesson had reached a place $20 million could not. Victor looked away first. Across the room, Dr. Mercer returned with the freshly cut copper sleeve. It was small, almost unimpressive. A curved piece of metal no longer than a man's hand. But everyone stared at it like it was a key. The engineers fitted it carefully around bracket 7. The collar slid into place. Locks tightened. Thermal shielding sealed over it. One click. Then another. Then silence. Dr. Mercer checked the readings. Structural fit is clean. The younger engineer swallowed. Vibration simulation holding. Dr. Whitman looked at Lily. Do you still hear it? Lily walked forward. Maria almost stopped her, then let her go. Lily placed her palm near the repaired section. The metal was still. Cold. Waiting. She closed her eyes. A few seconds passed. Then she opened them. It's quieter, she said. Dr. Mercer exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. Victor stared at the aether core. The machine that had mocked him for 6 weeks now stood ready again, but this time it carried a small copper answer from a child everyone had laughed at. Dr. Mercer moved to the control station. Prepare ignition sequence. The lights dimmed. The lab tightened around one shared breath. Maria pulled Lily close. Victor Hawthorne said nothing. He could only watch. Because the next test would not just prove whether the engine could survive. It would prove whether a billionaire, an empire, and a room full of experts had been saved by the one voice they never thought mattered. The laboratory lights dropped to a low blue glow. Across the control wall, the ignition sequence began. Ether core test 89. The words appeared in clean white letters. No one spoke. Not one cough. Not one nervous laugh. Only the faint hum of servers, the soft clicks of cooling metal, and the shaky breathing of a room full of people who knew this test could change everything. Lily Bennett stood beside her mother, tucked partly under Maria's arm. The teddy bear was pressed against her chest. Her eyes stayed on the aether core. Victor Hawthorne stood alone near the observation glass. For once he did not look powerful. He looked like a man waiting for judgment. Dr. Ethan Mercer placed his hand above the ignition command. His finger hovered there for a moment longer than necessary. Then he looked at Lily. You ready? The question was strange. A room full of experts. A billion-dollar engine. And they were asking a 10-year-old girl. Lily swallowed. Then she nodded. Dr. Mercer pressed the button. The ether core woke. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, stronger than before but smoother. Pale blue energy surged through the glass chambers. The copper veins lit one by one like a city coming alive at night. The engineers watched the data. Victor watched the clock. Maria watched Lily. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Everything held. Dr. Mercer's eyes moved quickly over the graphs. Core, temperature stable. Primary resonance steady, one engineer called. Containment field holding. The machine sounded different now. Not silent. Not perfect. Alive. But no longer fighting itself. Lily tilted her head. Her fingers tightened slightly around the teddy bear. She was listening. 40 seconds. 50. 60. This was the point where in every test before the invisible problem had begun to grow. The tiny wrong rhythm. The hidden knock beneath the thunder. Dr. Mercer leaned toward the screen. Secondary vibration. The young engineer at the console answered, almost afraid to say it. Reduced by 78%. Dr. Grace Whitman stepped closer to the monitor. Run live isolation. The graph changed. The main resonance line glowed bright blue. Under it, the yellow pulse appeared. Small. Weak. Controlled. It rose once. Then the copper collar absorbed it. The line dropped. A sound moved through the room. Not applause. Not celebration. A breath. The kind people release when they have been holding fear inside their ribs too long. 70 seconds. Victor's face tightened. He had seen success before. False success. The ether core had always looked beautiful before it failed. At 80 seconds the room changed. Everyone knew. They were entering the graveyard. 81. 82. 83. Maria pulled Lily closer. Lily did not blink. 84. 85. Dr. Mercer whispered, "Come on." 86. The machine glowed brighter. 87. No scream. 88. No violent shake. 89. Victor's lips parted. 90. Nothing happened. No shutdown. No alarm. No humiliating click. The aether core kept running. For one impossible second no one reacted. The number on the screen changed. 91. Then 92. Then 93. A young engineer covered her mouth. Another gripped the edge of the console with both hands. Dr. Mercer stared at the screen like he was afraid the numbers might disappear if he blinked. 100 seconds. The engine kept humming. Smooth. Strong. Alive. Dr. Whitman's voice broke the silence. Continue monitoring. But her voice shook. Everyone heard it. 120 seconds. The blue energy inside the chambers stabilized into a clean, steady pulse. The copper collar held. The bracket held. The secondary vibration stayed trapped, softened, drained away before it could become dangerous. The ether core was not dying anymore. It was breathing. Maria looked down at Lily. Lily's face was still serious, still focused. But her eyes were wet. "Baby," Maria whispered. Lily finally looked up. "It's not hurting now." That was when the room broke. An engineer laughed through tears. Someone clapped once. Then again. Then the whole laboratory erupted. People who had been crushed for 6 weeks shouted, hugged, slammed their hands on tables and stared at the glowing machine as if they were seeing sunrise for the first time. Dr. Mercer stepped back from the console, both hands on his head. "My God," he said. "It works." The words spread through the room. "It works. It works. It works." Victor Hawthorne did not move. He stood in the middle of the celebration staring at the ether core. His machine, his dream, his failure. Saved by a child he had mocked. Saved by the daughter of the woman he had humiliated in front of everyone. On the screen, the timer passed 180 seconds. 3 full minutes. Twice the old limit. The engine kept running. Dr. Whitman turned toward Victor. "This is no fluke," she said. "The system is stable." Victor looked at the copper reading. Then at Dr. Mercer. Then at Maria. Finally his eyes found Lily. She stood beneath the blue glow, small and quiet, still holding that old teddy bear while the most advanced clean energy engine in the world ran because she had heard what no one else could. Victor opened his mouth. No sharp words came. No insult. No joke. Only silence. For the first time in years Victor Hawthorne had nothing to say. The timer reached 300 seconds. 5 minutes. The aether core still lived. And in that shining laboratory every person understood the same truth. The future had not been saved by power. It had been saved by listening. The timer passed 5 minutes. Then 6. Then 7. The aether core kept running. No scream. No collapse. No final click. Only a steady blue glow filling the laboratory, washing over faces that had spent 6 weeks staring at failure. Dr. Ethan Mercer finally gave the order. Shut it down. This time the command did not feel like surrender. It felt like victory. The engine powered down slowly, smoothly, like a giant going to sleep by choice. The lights inside the glass chambers dimmed. The floor stopped trembling. The last low hum faded into silence. And then the room exploded. Engineers clapped. Some laughed. Some wiped their eyes and pretended they were not crying. One man leaned against the wall, both hands covering his face, overwhelmed by the simple fact that it was over. It worked. After $20 million. After 6 weeks without sleep. After every expert had missed it. It worked because Lily Bennett had listened. Maria Bennett held her daughter so tightly Lily could barely move. She kissed the top of her head again and again, whispering, "My baby, my brave, brilliant baby." Lily finally smiled. Not big. Not like someone who wanted attention. Just a small, tired smile from a child who had carried a room full of adults across a bridge they could not see. Across the lab, Victor Hawthorne stood alone. No one rushed to him. No one waited for his approval. For the first time that night, the celebration did not belong to him. And he knew it. Dr. Grace Whitman walked toward him, tablet in hand. Her silver hair caught the blue light from the dying engine. "The data is clear," she said. "The fix is stable. The copper damping collar solved the resonance failure." Victor stared at the screen. His voice came out low. "And the credit?" Dr. Whitman looked at him. "The credit belongs where it belongs." Her eyes moved to Lily. Victor followed her gaze. Lily was still in her mother's arms, clutching that worn teddy bear, surrounded now by engineers who looked at her with something close to awe. Victor swallowed. A moment earlier he had been a billionaire genius trapped by his own broken invention. Now he was something smaller. A man who had been wrong. Publicly. Cruelly. Completely. Dr. Mercer approached him carefully. "Mr. Hawthorne," he said, "we'll need to file the incident report, the correction model, and the updated design documentation before the government review." Victor nodded slowly. Then he looked at Maria. And the room seemed to quiet around him. Maria noticed. Her smile faded. Old fear returned to her eyes. Because men like Victor Hawthorne did not always apologize when they were embarrassed. Sometimes they punished people for witnessing it. Victor walked toward her. Every step echoed. Lily's fingers tightened around her teddy bear. Maria straightened, placing herself half in front of her daughter. Victor stopped a few feet away. For a long second he said nothing. Then he looked at Lily. "You fixed it." Lily did not answer. She only looked back at him. Victor's eyes dropped to the floor. "I mocked you." The room went still. He turned slightly toward Maria. "And I humiliated your mother." Maria's lips parted but no words came. Victor took a breath. Not the breath of a man preparing a speech. The breath of someone forcing pride out of his throat. "I was wrong." No one clapped. No one moved. That made the words heavier. Victor looked back at Lily. "I made a promise in front of everyone in this room." Maria's eyes widened. Victor turned toward his assistant, who had been standing near the glass doors, pale and silent. "Call legal." The assistant blinked. "Sir." "Now." Within minutes, the lab's main conference screen lit up. Two company attorneys appeared on a video call, confused and half awake, their hair messy, their ties missing. Victor did not explain the whole story. He did not soften it. He simply said, "Prepare a binding award agreement for Lily Bennett and Maria Bennett, $100 million. Protected trust. Immediate execution, no conditions tied to employment, no loopholes." One attorney froze. "Mr. Hawthorne, that figure." "I know the figure." "Sir, we should discuss." "No," Victor said. His voice was quiet now but absolute. "We are done discussing the value of people after they have already saved us." Maria covered her mouth. Tears spilled through her fingers. Lily looked up at her mother, confused by the size of what had just happened. $100 million did not mean mansions or cameras to her. It meant her mother could sleep. It meant hospital bills could stop coming like threats. It meant the future had opened a door. Victor faced Maria again. "The money will be placed in a protected trust. You will have independent counsel. Paid for by me but chosen by you. Your daughter's name will be on the discovery record. So will yours." Maria shook her head softly as if her mind could not hold it. "I don't know what to say." Victor looked at the engine. Then back at her. "You don't owe me anything." Those words hit Maria harder than the money. Because all night he had acted like she owed him respect, silence, obedience, and visibility. Now he was the one standing empty-handed. Lily stepped forward. "Is my mom still fired if I failed?" Victor closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, there was pain in his face. "No," he said. "And I should never have said that." Lily studied him. Children can see things adults try to hide. Finally she nodded once. "Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just understanding." Behind them, the Aether Core stood silent and whole. A billionaire had kept his promise. A mother's life had changed. And a little girl who had been laughed at now had her name tied forever to the machine that would light cities. Victor Hawthorne stood in the quiet lab long after the celebration faded. The engineers were still gathered around the Aether Core, checking numbers, saving data, whispering like people standing inside a miracle. But Victor was no longer looking at the machine. He was looking at Lily Bennett. She sat beside her mother on a bench near the glass wall, her little legs swinging above the floor, her teddy bear resting in her lap. Maria kept one arm around her as if afraid the world might still try to take the moment away. Victor walked over slowly. This time his footsteps did not sound like a warning. They sounded like a man approaching the truth. "I spent my whole life believing the smartest person in the room had to be the loudest," he said. Lily looked up. Maria stayed quiet. Victor's eyes moved to the cleaning cart near the corner. The same cart he had used to shame Maria. The same cart he had looked past for 2 years. I walk by your mother every night, he said. I never saw her. Maria's eyes filled again, but she did not look away. Victor swallowed. And because I never saw her, I almost missed you. The words settled softly. No cameras. No applause. Just a billionaire learning that money could buy buildings, machines and experts, but not humility. Dr. Mercer stepped closer and handed Lily a small piece of polished copper from the repair table. We saved this for you, he said. Lily took it carefully. It was warm from the machines. Small enough to fit in her palm. Big enough to change her life. She held it against her teddy bear and smiled. My great-grandpa would have liked this, she whispered. Maria kissed her forehead. He would have been proud. Victor looked at the Aether core one last time. The machine was silent now, but it no longer felt broken. It felt patient. Waiting for the next test. Waiting to light homes, hospitals, schools and cities. But the real power in that room was not inside the engine. It was in the lesson it left behind. Sometimes, the answer does not come from the person with the biggest office. Sometimes it does not come from the loudest voice, the longest title, or the most expensive degree. Sometimes it comes from the quiet person in the corner. The one everyone ignores. The one who has been listening all along. That night Lily Bennett did more than fix a machine. She changed the heart of a man who thought he had already conquered the world. And as Maria held her daughter under the soft blue glow of the laboratory, everyone in that room understood something they would never forget. A person's worth is not measured by their job, their clothes, their money, or where they stand in the room. It is measured by what they carry inside. And sometimes the smallest voice can save the biggest dream. Never look down on someone just because their life looks smaller than yours. The person you ignore today may carry the wisdom, courage, or kindness that saves you tomorrow. Respect is not something we give only to powerful people. It is something every human being deserves. And now, tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone underestimated, and then prove everyone wrong? Share your story below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you powerful stories about courage, dignity, and the quiet people who change the world.